In an era dominated by rock and roll, a soft, pure voice permeates our hearts. We are grateful today for America's sweetheart. On top of the world, we are joining Karen Carpenter.
Yay! What a great intro. Did you practice?
I did, like all day. All day.
Great intro. And she's standing behind me. I can feel her energy just kind of pushing against my back. She's saying, I love you. You're amazing. Keep up the good work, she says.
What do you think of my voice, Karen? No, don't answer that. That's okay.
She says angelic, because you are a divine being.
Oh, you're so kind.
She feels really, the way that I mean, I never really, I'm from 1981, so I was kind of born a little late to really get to know her. But the way that she kind of projects herself to me, and again, let me explain that, spirits will show themselves to you in a way that's most comfortable or most relatable to you. To me, she feels very petite, kind of very fragile, but at the same time, I think where she is now, she's very healthy. She feels very healthy, very energetic. She has a great sense of humor, and she just feels like the sweetest soul ever. Like you just want to be best friends and hang out and go do some fun things. So she's really a good-hearted, very bright soul, I think.
I, unlike you, grew up with Karen Carpenter, you young thing, you. So I know, and I can appreciate and speak for my generation what Karen meant to me and worldwide in the 70s. What an incredible sound to come out then, I think against all odds, because for those of us that were around in the 70s, Vietnam was going on and harder rock and roll was coming to fruition, and against all odds, this sound comes out that's soft and just pulled us all in to a place that we didn't know, and was in such contrast to what was going on in the world. And Karen, you are just phenomenal, not just musically, but the impact that your music gave to my generation. It has that feeling of living on. This is going to live on forever. Can't imagine that impact ever going away. And personally, I just am so grateful and thank you for stepping forward and joining us today for this interview.
She says, I feel blessed to be able to do this with you. And she says, I want to thank everyone who voted for me to come in today, because you guys get to vote. I was hoping I got to have some time to share some experiences with everyone and to maybe plant some seeds of healing and forgiveness and love to everyone. So thank you. Thank you for having me today on your show.
Oh, you're so sweet. I love you so much. Oh my gosh.
I love you too.
We have questions from Emma's group, and we compiled them sort of to start with your childhood and go into your adulthood and afterlife and so forth. Could you, before we get into the questions from your childhood, could you just give us sort of a general overview of what your childhood was like?
Well, I think It started out as a normal childhood, but as I grew into my teens, insecurities would come in, pressure from the family would come in, and I think um, some people might have been able to handle those pressures a little bit better than I did, but not everybody's equally strong, and not everyone has the same confidence. And so for me, as I grew older, it just became more and more challenging. But I had friends, and I loved going to school, and I loved music. That's always been part of my family. My dad had a huge record collection. We would listen to it. My friends would come over and we would listen to it. I had a great brother, and so I guess it was an okay childhood that became harder and harder as I grew past the age of 11.
I think, one of the things that I find so incredible about you that I don't know that a lot of people know about is your joy from playing the drums. The phenomenal drum playing. Can you talk a little bit about that, about your experience with the drums?
Well, I think we all have to have some kind of outlet, something where we can put our energy in, something that we can process our frustrations, our anger. And that can be something, beautiful, like playing the drums. It was my way of letting go of energies that were building up, that were creating frustration and stress and anger. And it gave me a sense of instant manifestation. I got instant results, and it was under my control. And that's what I really needed at that time. I needed something to hold on to that made me feel like I had my life under control. I had something under control. And playing the drums, really, it was some kind of outlet. It was a way to process things. It was a way to lose myself. It was a way to clear everything in my mind, all the doubts, the worries, the responsibilities that were placed upon me. It was a way for me to completely be in the zone, to be in that moment, and to kind of step away from human life, to kind of step away from that. So you kind of, when I played, and the singing part was great, but if I could just play without singing, that would be even better for me. When I played, it felt like being in heaven for a little bit. And then as soon as you stop, you have to go back to reality. And it's a little bit of a downer. So it was my escape to go into a higher realm without leaving my physical body.
Were you able to play the drums throughout your life, or did you have to slowly give that up over the years as your singing became more of value, really? People wanted to hear you sing.
I started playing the drums. She's showing me like after high school is when she started doing that. She's saying at first it was my everything and it was my go-to thing. But as life got busier, as I was more and more controlled on how to perform, what to do when we're performing, and so on and so forth, I didn't have much time to just have a jam session. I did do it from time to time whenever I had a minute, but life was so hectic and busy, and between that and being sick all the time and really focusing on that illness and on kind of the demons that were chasing me at that moment, you lose track of what brings you joy. You lose track of that because the focus is only on some kind of survival. And so it would go less and less. So it started out small, it grew big, and then it faded a little bit.
Right.
Yeah.
We're going to wind back to childhood for a moment and go to these questions from Emma's group. Lori was wondering or asking, how was your relationship with your mother?
So, yeah. It's not an easy subject for me. She says, I guess I would call it challenging, controlling, destructive. She says she was a dominant and even scary energy. She scared me. I was afraid of her. And she was very goal-oriented. She was completely unable to show any kind of love and affection towards me, something that, my whole life I was desperately craving. And I tried everything. I tried everything to get her attention, to get some kind of affection. But I felt like I was never enough. No matter what I did, it was never enough. And she really was obsessed with keeping up appearances towards the outside world. We had to be the perfect family. And I had to be the perfect daughter, and my brother had to be the perfect son. And so everything had to be perfect. But in reality, it really was the opposite. And so she would always support my brother because he had learned to fulfill her needs and desires by kind of adjusting his own life to her expectations. And I guess he was just stronger than I was because I always failed to ever give her anything of what she expected of me, or at least that's how I experienced it. I always felt like I could never do it. Like I couldn't please her. I couldn't give her what she wanted me to be, who she wanted me to be. And the only time that we ever connected at some level, and it wasn't much, but it was something, and I really grabbed onto it when it happened. The only time I ever felt some kind of affection was when she tried to nurse me back to health after I got sick from my disorder. However, a lot later, I realized that, again, it wasn't about me. It wasn't, she didn't care for me because she wanted to, because she wanted me to be healthy again, to be safe. She really cared for me because she wanted the safe face for the family, to maintain my participation in her plan of being famous, of being successful, of being wealthy. Because what a lot of people don't know is that the money that came in through me and my brother was divided amongst all family members. So it was all about saving face, and it was not about caring for me. And that really, really hurt me deeply. And so she said she didn't want me to go to a psychiatrist. She didn't want me to see help. Because, psychiatrists were for crazy people, and she was not going to have any kind of that kind of publicity or exposure. So, sorry, I got a tickle in my throat. Just help me with it, Karen. She's going, drink something. Okay, drink something. So let's just say that she was a really hard woman to live with, and she was even harder to please.
So that sort of segues fairly well into our next question from Homayan. Now, he's asking that you enlighten us on your relationship with your brother, but that also ties in with what you're discussing about your relationship with your mother. There's sort of a triangle piece going on here between you and your brother and you and your mother, the three of you. So was your relationship with your brother impacted by your relationship with your mother?
Absolutely, absolutely. Her influence on him also changed our relationship as the years passed by. We were very close, we were very intimate, not in the way that people think. She says, my God, we had to hear some weird stories. But really, my brother and I were soulmates. We were and we still are. We're always very close to each other. We have this kind of spiritual connection. And in a way, we were always each other's support in our family. We could be ourselves with each other, which gave us that little feeling of freedom in our very restrictive and dominated daily life by our mom. So there were so many rumors that would go around about our relationship. You know, none of them were true, but it did affect us. And it also kind of cast a shadow on our relationship because it was never anything sexual or anything incestual, as some people claimed. But it did kind of, on a subconscious level, it was almost like we were then being careful. We had to constantly be careful about what are people going to say when they saw us together in public. So it did kind of bring this shadow among us. And the thing is, as we grew older, as we became more and more successful, we started to victimize ourselves, both of us, right? And my brother's addiction for to sleeping pills and my eating disorder, on one hand brought us closer together because we wanted to help each other, but on the other hand it also created friction and frustration, and it created this sense of don't try and control what I do and things like that. So everything kind of became more and more unstable between us, and we started to criticize each other even more, and also the enormous workload and the pressures that were placed upon us by others, to continue to excel. And I mean, we were working nonstop, and both of us were perfectionistic. And he was even more perfectionistic than I was, but I always wanted to be just like him. So I would kind of follow him in everything that he did. So to end that, she says, we had and still have, we still have, okay? I know when he comes home, I will be there for him, but we still have a very special, very close bond that helped us survive our childhood. I mean, we needed to have somebody we could be ourselves with instead of always trying to fit into the picture that my mother had placed upon us. We needed to fit into the character that she had created for us. And that relationship was great all the way to the early adult years. He was never jealous of me either. A lot of people suggested that. I just want to get that out of the way. He wasn't jealous. He was just still under the control of my mother, trying to please her, trying to do that. And that really just kind of put so much pressure on our working relationship as well. And so we both went through insecurities. We both had massive pressure upon us by others and massive pressure that we put upon ourselves. But in the end, we always have and always will have a great relationship of support and love, and really that close soul connection. That's the connection with my brother.
Thank you. That's lovely. Pat says, hi, Karen.
Hi, Pat.
Hi, Pat. When did your bulimia, anorexia begin, and why? Did it start in early childhood? So, Pat, like many of us, are aware of your struggle with anorexia, bulimia. So if you could speak to that.
Well, she says, behind every eating disorder, there's always a cry for help from the deepest parts of our souls to really find a sense of wholeness, to really kind of know, it's almost like a desperate cry for, please tell me who we are, and really a longing to know ourselves as a whole, not just in our bodies, but also in our minds and in our spirit. So in a way, I would say it's an addiction where the person is stuck in a compulsive behavior pattern to find and to establish a sense of self-worth in the face of feeling worthless. So it is the higher self's desire to truly experience inner growth and awareness, to truly find that inner connection to the soul, and really all that is to the universe, to God's source. And so I myself was really trying to fill a void, and that void, of course, being not being good enough, my mother never being pleased with me, never being able to find some kind of love and affection, and so on and so forth. So for a very long time, I always felt that there was something missing within me, like an emptiness, a loneliness, which really created my suffering. And I was looking for love. I was looking for an emotional and spiritual connection. I was looking for acceptance from my mother. So I became a tyrannical inner critic, and I became perfectionistic, and in a way, I became my own saboteur. I started to create these enormous, unrealistic expectations within me, and it kind of messed up things. It messed me up, if you want to look at it from that.
Did that start after your career was launched? Did that begin? Or was that in the works long before the career launch?
No, it actually began at a very early age. It began when I was in high school, and I always felt like I was too fat, and I always felt like I was a little bigger than most people. So it already began there, and I think my mom didn't really help me with that, because if I would eat something, she would always criticize it, or should you be eating that? And, us women, us Carpenter women, we always kind of, it goes to the hips and it goes to this. So she would kind of always criticize me. So that just added to the insecurities of what I myself was already kind of feeling. But yeah, it started at, I think I started to really kind of become aware of what I was putting in my mouth. It didn't go into that illness yet. It was just about being aware that, okay, maybe I shouldn't eat that. Maybe I should go on a diet. Maybe this, maybe that. I would say around 16, 17 is when it really started to kick in that, maybe I need to take better care of my body. But it hadn't developed yet into an eating disorder. It was just an awareness of my body and of trying to look the best that I could look. Again, to please my mother.
You had mentioned that your mother, so aware of your public image, that going to a psychiatrist or seeking that mental health help was taboo. It was taboo in the 70s anyway. Did you eventually seek counseling of any sort?
I did towards the end of my life, about 2 years before my death.
Was your mother aware of that?
She was.
And was she not? I imagine she wasn't very pleased that you were doing that.
I think she had gotten to a point where she knew that we couldn't fix this problem ourselves. And I think she had kind of surrendered to that. Okay, as long as we kind of keep it hush hush and we don't try to expose it too much. I think she felt and she knew that I was losing the battle. Something needed to be done. Yeah.
And John is asking, what is the spiritual lesson behind eating disorders, yours or anyone else's? What's the spiritual lesson?
She says, I think this biggest spiritual lesson is really finding self-love. Again, it's very different for everyone, but it always kind of comes down to finding self-love. It's about not allowing others to determine who you want to be, what you want to do, what you want to look like. But I guess the main lesson is self-love. That's really the main lesson.
And was that was your lesson as well, the self-love?
It was my biggest lesson. For me, it really was about escaping imprisonment from my mother. It really was, for me, it was put into place. I chose this journey to kind of help me transcend being controlled by the ideas of another person. It was about finding inner balance, inner strength. It was about finding empowerment within my own beingness. But if you look at my journey, my whole journey, I'm either doing what my brother did. I was either trying to copycat him because he was loved, he was supported. Mom truly supported him. She was really proud of him, although she was critical of him all the time, but she still showed some kind of affection towards him and some kind of support towards him. So either my whole life I tried to be my brother, or I tried to please my mother. And so my life was always about another person. It was never about me. And so my life lesson in this whole eating disorder really was to find inner love, to find inner balance, to truly discover who I am without these people. The only thing is I wasn't strong enough in this life to do that. I wasn't strong enough to transcend it. So in a way, I didn't fulfill the intention that I had placed upon this life. And that's okay. We don't always do that. We have plenty of other opportunities to then go into that same lesson.
Susan is asking, how can we help those on earth suffering from anorexia or eating disorders?
Oh, that's a great question, Susan. Thank you for asking that, she says. Okay. She's saying, let me get my doctor suit. She's showing me putting a white coat on, putting some glasses on and going, do I look smart enough? She's kind of funny. Okay, Susan. Well, okay, let's talk about this. She says, eating disorders, I think, and I believe, are still today misunderstood, right? So many are addressing these disorders as a mental problem or as a psychological illness, when in fact it really is, like I said before, it really is a spiritual disconnection from your true self. So it really is, I would call it a spiritual disorder. That's really what it is. And so people with eating disorders, they kind of need support and guidance in finding themselves. They need help in discovering, number one, the underlying roots of their soul suffering. What is creating the suffering? What is creating this disconnection with the self? And I think the problem is today we're trying to always fix the physical problems. We're trying to fix the physical aftermath. Let's feed him. Let's stuff him with food. And yes, they get therapy, but they don't go into the rebuilding of reconnection with who am I, what can I do, all of that. So in a way, therapists and doctors nowadays are trying to fix the physical aftermath of the disorder, but by looking at what the eating disorder is providing for that individual, what is it giving them that they're lacking, and then only then will you find the answer, the solution to the problem. So once we know what void that person is trying to fill with the eating disorder, then we can, because eating disorders, it's either anorexia, or people are eating too much and they get massive obesity. It's the same thing, okay? It just is all the same thing. So once we can figure out what the void is, what these people are lacking, or why they are trying to use food as a way to replace something, then we can really look into and provide therapies like mindfulness sessions, meditation classes, because you see, when a person is stuck in the cycle of an eating disorder, they are either stuck in the past or they are obsessing over their next fix. Just like a drug addict, just like an alcoholic. They're always looking for that next fix. And that next fix could be either food. It could be, just waiting to purge to get it all out of there. It could be extreme exercising. It could be extreme dieting. So in a way, there is an inability to accept whatever is being felt in that present moment. They either look at the past or they're looking forward to their next fix, but they're not in the moment. They're not being present in the moment. And so mindfulness exercises and therapy opens up space to feel that they have a choice. Each time that person is able to create that space, it provides a sense of hope, and they become stronger. They become more confident, and they start to feel like they're finally in control of their own life. They're deciding. And that's something that I lacked. I missed that lesson. The lesson that, hey, I do have a choice. This is my life. Why am I allowing these other people to influence and determine who I want to be, what I want to do, what I want to work on, and so on and so forth, how I want my schedule to look like, because I had no control over where we went for performances, how many we did. I had no say in that. That was my mom. She controlled everything. She decided you need to do 200 sessions or 200 performances within that many time. We had no control over when do we take a break, when do we take a vacation, when do we just get away from things. There was no control. And I missed the fact that I did have a choice. I just never chose to choose. I chose to follow it. So getting back to the therapy, so mindfulness, meditation will definitely help, 100% yes. Also, self-help groups where they can share their emotions, they can share their thoughts, their fears, everything they're going through, but without the judgment, right? And also, I think creating and providing a creative outlet for self-expression can, it can also help them to find new ways of nourishing the soul and spirit instead of trying to do it with food or the lack of. So giving them ways to discover things about themselves that they haven't discovered yet, that gives them instant manifestation, that gives them a sense of, wow, I created this, look at that. It feeds the soul, okay? Because the soul is the problem here. We're disconnected from the soul. So we need to feed the soul and feed the reconnection through creative means, the reconnection to source energy. And then energetic healing and hypnosis can also help to heal and kind of disconnect those certain energetic disturbances. And last but not least, and this is an important one, there needs to be a deep understanding, and that's something I didn't get, a deep understanding from the family members and the friends. So family members and friends should support the person. They should believe the person without any judgment, because unfortunately today, a lot of people think, why don't you just eat?
Mm-hmm.
It's all in your head.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not in the head. It is a complete disconnection from the soul. And that is not something that can be fixed just by taking a bite. So having your family be there, supportive, understanding what is going on, not forcing you to do things, because it's that forced behavior that creates the opposite effect. You want to eat even less, or you want to eat even more. It's about supporting your loved one's soul with love, acceptance, understanding, and understanding that this is their life, this is their choices, and all you need to do is love them, be there for them, and support them, and so they can feel that love, that energy, that positivity around them, instead of feeling like my mom once forces me to eat, my mom forces me to do that, my dad. Forcing people isn't going to help. Supporting them is. And I think those are the best ways to help a person with an eating disorder.
Releasing the control.
Yeah.
Stop the control, right?
And I think that's the hard part, because most people are afraid for their loved one. So they try to control the situation even more. You need to eat. You need to stop eating. You need to do this. You need to do that. But that's what usually started the disorder in the first place.
And a very vicious cycle.
Yes.
Right. Thank you. I mean, so very many people need to hear this, and it's a fabulous message. And not just for eating disorders, I'm saying on a side note, and for many, the message that I'm hearing from you, Karen, is really, it could be for any issue we may be having with a loved one, that we love them, right?
We always have to understand that in a journey in life, everyone makes their own choices. And trying to control another will usually have the opposite effect of what you're trying to accomplish. However, love, support, acceptance, that these are their choices, and making them understand just how much you love them and support them can make a difference in the healing process of an individual.
Absolutely. Karen, can you tell us about the story of you and your husband, Thomas? How has being a girlfriend and then a wife, how did that impact or influence your attitude or action toward your singing career?
Well, I would just say Thomas was an escape. I believe that I had found love, but the problem was I didn't really know what real love was supposed to look like, or even feel like. And I felt like I was getting older and I was running out of time to really start a family. And so I really leaped into a relationship with my eyes closed. I had no idea what I was getting myself into, and I just kind of hoped for the best. Did it affect my musical career? I don't think it did, but I think it affected my eating disorder even more. It just added another proof that my mother was right. I was a failure, and I'm not good at doing anything, not even being loved.
Mm. That was your marriage was very short, was it? Like a year maybe? I don't know.
We separated very quickly, but we didn't make it official quick enough because I never got to sign those divorce papers, although I was ready to.
You crossed over prior to the
Yes.
divorce being final?
Yes.
And this is a great question. We need to know this about you. Would love to know this about you. Angelica is asking, what hobbies did you have other than music?
Good question.
Ah,
She says, thank you, Angelica. I like your name.
yeah, that's great.
Well, she says music was always present, but I loved drawing. I love drawing pictures. I love being creative on paper and on a canvas. So that's something that made me feel connected to something bigger than myself. And it made me feel like I was able to accomplish something on my own because everything I did was with my brother. And most of it was my brother's input. I was just there to sing and play the drums. And so most of the creativeness came from my brother. And this was my way of expressing myself in a creative way, something that was just me.
Is it true also that you enjoyed embroidery?
That is true, but that felt more like therapy to me. To clear the mind, However, that came less and less as I evolved.
I understand that when you were a child, you enjoyed, was it baseball? Or what?
I enjoyed sports always. I've always been very athletic. I don't know what it is. She's just showing me walking, like running around with the ball and dribbling it. So I'm assuming it's baseball. But she said she always loved any kind of sports because it made her, again, it made her forget everything from home.
Okay. So, another great question. So many good questions. Dawana is asking, what was your happiest moment?
Oh, wow.
What was your happiest moment?
I know a lot of people want to think my wedding day, but that was not it. She says, I guess the happiest moment, and I have to admit, despite the many experiences that I had and, the many ways that I tried to put humor into my experiences, I think one of the happiest moments I experienced was when we got our first #1 hit. Because it felt like the world was at our feet. In a way, I felt like I was in control of something because we did it together, me and my brother. It was something that we created, and we were being appreciated for it. So that moment when they told me we had a #1 hit, it was a great moment. Of course, later on, my mom had to ruin it. She had to ruin the moment later on by saying, okay, now we need to get another one and another one, and putting pressure upon us again to do the same thing. So, but when the moment happened, she wasn't present, so that was a good moment.
And you did that so many times, hit after hit after hit. It's amazing. Letitia is asking, do you think you would have been happier behind your drum kit than being pushed out to the front to sing, as I know you really felt so insecure?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It was my safe haven. It's where I could hide behind, it almost functioned like a border that was created between the critical audience, because I always felt like I was being looked at and I was being judged. Really, it was that border between the audience and myself. So being on stage without my drums really made me feel vulnerable, and it kind of highlighted my insecurities. So I really didn't enjoy that. Although I made it look like I did because we were trained to do so.
Fabulous actress. Fabulous actress.
We didn't do that. My mom, we would hear it from my mom if we didn't.
Oh, well, 10 out of 10. Roxana is asking if you have any regrets.
That's a hard question. I guess I regret that I wasn't strong enough to transcend my insecurities and my eating disorder, because I could have inspired, I think, and truly helped a lot of people who were suffering from the same thing. I think if I could have, in some way or form, been stronger and really rise above my disorder, I could have been kind of that support to other people who were going through the same thing and who were not getting the support and the love that they needed. So I guess I regret that I didn't fulfill my destiny. I didn't fulfill my contract in a way, because I just wasn't strong enough.
And yet, your death at the tender age of 32, and at that time, was so eye-opening to the world, the cause of your death. And
I guess it brought awareness. It brought awareness about these illnesses. If you think about it, eating disorders have always been around as long as mankind has been around. People think this is something from the newer generations, but it's been around in the medieval times. Disconnecting from the soul has always been a journey, a life lesson that many souls have chosen to overcome, to transcend. Only in the medieval times, they would say, "Oh, she's possessed by the devil." They would give a turn to it in that way, And then when I was Karen in that lifetime, it did occur a lot too, but it wasn't talked about. It wasn't really discussed. It wasn't really known to the majority of the people in the planet. And I think my transitioning truly was, for me, it was all about, loving the self. It was really about transcending that, trying to find unity with my own soul, and so on and so forth. But I think I was really here in a way, whether or not I achieved the goals or not, either way, I was going to bring awareness to the illness in whatever way or form that came, because we're dealing with free will, of course. And so, either way, it's accepted the way that you go. But that was my biggest, I think, part, is not only to help create music that would heal the soul, but also to bring awareness to any type of eating disorder, that this is a very real thing, and it's not something just that people create in their minds. It goes very deep, and it's a very hard thing to overcome. I think that, I struggled with it for over 7 years. It's until you go through it, it's really hard to understand what it feels like. Because from a human perspective, it's just food, So I think that's part of my journey, was to bring that awareness. Mm-hmm.
And you absolutely did. And I hope that one of the pieces here that the viewers will see and understand is the image that we had of you, Karen Carpenter, the singer, the musician, and what was behind that image is so starkly different. And what a life lesson for each of us to see. On the one hand, you know, you did an amazing job at performing not just the music, but performing an image that was not congruent to what was going on in your soul.
Well, and I'm hoping also that through this interview, we can bring some awareness to how destructive we can be towards each other. So I'm hoping that mothers and fathers who see this understand what an influence your response to your child can have on their future life. I think this is another important lesson that can be learned from my experience as Karen.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you. Absolutely. Evie is wondering if you had a spiritual practice, and did you believe in God?
She's pulling up her nose. She's going, well, I believed in God. I believe it's something bigger than myself. And my parents were religious, but I never truly focused on practicing religion. My focus was survival and music.
Okay. Scott would like to know, how was your crossing over, and who was there to guide and or greet you on your transition?
Well, I remember having a physical feeling, kind of this instant peace and relief. So this is what happened when I transitioned. I felt very lightheaded and I was getting really dizzy. And so I remember falling down to the floor and I was just laying there. Like I didn't even have the strength to try and get up. I just decided to just stay there. And I remember listening to my heartbeat because it was really, it was going really fast. It was going really hard. You know how sometimes you can feel your heartbeat, like it's almost going to jump out of your chest? That's what it felt like. And so I was just focusing on listening to that and feeling that, I don't know, palpitation, I guess, of the heart. And so I closed my eyes and I was focusing on it. It was almost like it was the only real thing that I felt was my heart. My heart was real. It was there. It was present. And as I was focusing on the rhythm and on that feeling that that was very intense, all of a sudden I stopped. It stopped. I couldn't hear it, and I thought, oh, good. I'm calming down. It's gone. You know, I'm feeling better. But I didn't realize that I had transitioned. So I was just laying there. But I just felt, you know, this instant relief, like, oh, good. We're better now. I feel better. And the sound of the heart just disappeared. And so it took me a few minutes to realize that, oh, okay, I had died. And as soon as I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm dead. As soon as that realization kicked in, I felt this very strong pull within me, and I instantly appeared into a new space. I didn't travel. There was no distance to be taken. There was nobody that came and got me and grabbed my hand and guided me to heaven. The moment I had that realization, boom, I was standing up and I was looking around and I was in a different space. And family members started coming forward and friends started coming forward, and even some musicians that I had known started coming forward and greeted me. And the funny thing is, I was also greeted by these strangers who I'd never seen before, but they felt like they were my best friends. And they just provided me with love and with healing, something that I never felt before when I was alive. This kind of intense, it's too beautiful to put into words. There's no words for it. but this immense, beautiful, unconditional love. And then they kind of talked me through it and say, okay, hey, welcome. And they guided me and they talked me through everything. And it was, yeah, blissful.
Wow.
It was a relief in a way. I was like, okay, good. We're done with that.
I like their sense of humor at that time. Oh.
I was like, woo. Well, you just feel so good. You just can't, you can't help but being joyful. And I just want to say that, people who are, I'm not telling you that everybody should just kick the bucket and go home. Try and, you do get a sense of regret when you see your life review and you say to yourself, man, why couldn't I have done this differently? Or that would have been a great experience. There's no real regrets, but there's this sense of, oh, I didn't do it. And then you get excited of trying again. I know from a human perspective, you're like, oh my God, I never want to do this life again. But when you get that other perspective, you're like, oh, I could have done that different. Why didn't I? Okay, I see why I can manage this and can manage that. So you do get a different perspective. But, transitioning is a great feeling. But experiencing your full path is even more blissful. So,
which is another tremendous lesson for our viewers today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sue would like to know if you have reincarnated in the current timeline.
I have. She says, I am a young man in Russia dreaming to become a professional athlete. And again, this is a lesson of believing in the self. This is a lesson to learn to handle criticism, and most of all, to find self-love and self-accomplishment. So
this time in sport.
This time in sports, because I loved exercising.
Does this young Russian man, does he enjoy music?
He does, but he's very focused on becoming the best athlete in the world. So It's going to be interesting to see how he does.
Okay, eyes open. Does he sing? Does he sing in with the radio in the car?
He sings, but he's no Karen Carpenter.
Okay. I had to, you have to know. Carol would like to know what past lifetimes most influenced your spiritual journey as Karen Carpenter.
Oh, good question. Well, lifetimes, incarnations aren't linear. Let's say that. So, but there is a lifetime that kind of it was an experience of the opposite of what I experienced as Karen. Because, either way, all incarnations influence you. Okay, all of them. It doesn't matter whether it's closely connected to this one or it's not. Every incarnation has an influence on you as an energetic soul, because they all kind of add to the expansion and the evolution of your higher self, of God's source as well. So it's not just for you, but it's also for the collective, for all that is for God, if you want to look at it that way. But I guess I experienced in the early 1800s, she's showing me a timeline, 1800s, where I was the controlling, bullying energy, overshadowing my children's existence. So I was in the footsteps of my mom. And I was born and I married into a very wealthy family. But in that kind of environment, I was never taught how to express love or how to handle emotions. I was taught to suppress all emotions and to always thrive for success, for maintaining financial stability, for creating a great image at all costs. So my children suffered from their cold mother. And they eventually, as they grew older and they became adults, they rejected me. And to make a long story short, I died very much alone with just a servant by my side who wasn't really a big fan of me because I was a bully. And I just wasn't a great person. So that's how I learned that we need to take better care of each other, and we need to love each other, and we need to find ways to discover what love is, and to to understand that our relationships, the love between them, is more important than this.
Absolutely. You've touched on this a lot, but perhaps you have more to add. Kate is asking, first is, hi, Karen.
Hi, Kate.
What did you learn from this life, and what did you learn, and what did you teach?
Well, I think, like I said, I was here to bring awareness to eating disorders to the public. My death created major life lessons for my family, very intimate lessons. Let's just leave it at that. And really, I was here to transcend victim consciousness, and to find and develop self-love and self-respect, and to find that inner balance, and to not allow others to determine who I am and what I should do in my life. And I think I like to now believe that I was also here to show you or to show how family can have an impact on everyone's future.
Absolutely. Which ties into, Karen would like to know if you fulfilled your contract here on Earth.
Well, I think I'm still working on that, and I have incorporated it into incarnations, incarnations, so I'm working on it. The thing is, self-love and inner freedom seems to be one of the hardest life lessons to learn when it comes to being human, and so many of us are struggling with this one life lesson. And this is the problem. We're all trying to fit in. We're all trying to be what and who the world expects us to be. And all we need to do is be ourselves and be proud of it. Stand tall in who you are as an individual. Be proud of your uniqueness. Be proud of your unique abilities and qualities, and allow them to shine beautifully upon the world and upon the rest. Because if you look at people who are successful, and you look at people who actually maintain a certain balance in that success, they're all very unique. And they don't give a shit what people think. They just go for it. Whether you like them or not, up to you, your choice, they say. But this is who I am, and I'm sticking by it. That's what we all need to learn to do. Stick with who you are and be proud of it.
Absolutely. Dina is stating, I had read that you wanted to have children. Are you working with children now? Are you assisting or interested in assisting people who are dealing with eating disorders? Oh, there's a few there.
Well, I help all those who really request my guidance and my assistance. I mean, it's what we do. We help each other, because you are me and I am you. So in a way, I'm helping myself at the same time. And on top of that, I can make your journey a little bit easier and a little bit more clear for you. So I will help anyone who reaches out to me who needs assistance. However, my main focus at this moment is going to helping young souls on earth to love themselves, and to use their love for music and their love for singing to connect to the divine inspiration within all of us. That's really where my main focus is going towards. But like I said, anybody's welcome to request.
I ask for your help all the time when I'm singing. But, okay. You know that. Anna Sanderson, I feel very connected to you, as though I know you somehow, particularly lately whilst working on a project. I felt your presence, as if you've been there supporting me with it. Is this true? Do you ever visit your fans in this way?
She says, well, Anna, you're not so much connecting to me as an individual, but you are connecting to some of the pain that I endured because you are going through similar frequencies. And yes, I visit and help those who reach out to me. Sometimes I send people my songs. Sometimes I send people feelings or thoughts. They're not always aware it's me, but if you just request me, then you will receive those answers through any of those kind of communication.
Okay. Why do we have difficult names? Never mind. Dagmar, there's a great song you sang. I'm on the top of the world looking down on creation. Now that you're with infinite love, how does the world appear to you?
Oh, that's a great question. Well, from my spiritual perspective, I see a world filled with possibilities and hope. We all have choices to make. We need to decide who we want to be. We need to decide what we want our future to look like and how we would like to be treated ourselves. So we can then choose to become all of that ourselves first, so we can then influence and inspire everyone else around us to do the same thing. So I hope from the bottom of my heart, you all learned from my story that loving yourself is key in this existence. That if we want to experience freedom outside of us, that we first have to find freedom within our minds, within our bodies, and within our hearts. So liberate yourselves from expectations of others and raise yourselves up by only following your own heart, your own passion, and your own creativity. That is what I hope you guys take away from this interview.
Mic drop.
She's sending you love.
Mic drop. Thank you, Karen. Thank you so much. The multitude of messages that you were able to deliver in this time is amazing, incredible. And I know so many of us are touched by one or more messages you offered today. Thank you so much.
You're very, very welcome. And thank you for inviting me. And to everyone listening, thank you for choosing me to be able to share my love to you. Thank you.
Top of the world looking down on creation. Okay.
Keep going, she says. Keep going. You look great.
No, not if it doesn't sound like you. It's not coming out.
I'm on the top of the world and I look down. I think Emma's going to kill me. Let's just move on. Time for me.
She was coming through you. Go, Karen.
I love you. I will see you guys later.
Love you guys.
Okay, thank you, Pam. Thank you for being here again with me for interviewing Karen. It was a lot of fun.
Pleasure. It was great. Thank you.
You can cross that off your bucket list. Check.
Oh,
I talked to Karen.
I know it was. And I could pronounce her name, Karen Carpenter.
There you go. Yay.
Thank you.
Yay. Thank you, guys. We will see you next time with Joan of Arc. And have a blessed day. Love you.
Bye, everybody.